A pleasant day to the young and enthusiastic learners. I'm Dr. Shobha, Principal, Associate Professor and Head of the Department of Corporate Secretaryship, KCS Kasinada College of Arts and Science. Today we'll be seeing a few problems in residential status. So moving on to the practical problems in residential status. So before we move on to the practical problems, we shall have a recap of the provisions. So the basic conditions: stay in India for at least 182 days in the previous year. The second basic condition: stay in India for at least 60 days in the previous year and 365 days in 4 years prior to the previous year. The additional conditions: resident in India for at least 2 out of 10 previous years prior to the previous year, and stay in India for at least 730 days in 7 years prior to the previous year. So with this recap, we'll move on to some problems. And before we move on to the problems, the condition: if a person satisfies any one of the basic condition, he is a resident, and if he satisfies both the additional conditions, he becomes ordinarily resident. So now here's a situation where Mr. Subramani left India for the first time on 25/2012. So till that he was in India. During the year 1920, he comes in May 27 and stayed for a period of 8 days. So in our previous year, he is there in India for just 58 days. Our basic condition: he should be in India for at least 182 days, but he is there for only 58 days. So second condition: at least 60 days in the previous year. He does not satisfy the second basic condition also, so he is a non-resident. Then the next situation: Mr. Rajan left for Singapore on 15th March 2015 after staying in India for 15 years. So he was in India for 15 years. He came back on 31st August 2019. So determine his residential status. So in our previous year, from 31st August 2019, he is in India. So 31st August 2019 till 31st March 2020. So this is our stay in India for Mr. Rajan during the previous year. So August 31 he comes here, so that one day, the day he comes to India, the day he leaves India, both are counted in India. So 31st he is in India, so that is one day. Then September 30 days, October 31 days he is here only, November 30 days, December 31 days, and again January 31 days, February 29 days, March 31 days. So totally he is in India during the previous year for 214 days. So to be a resident, he has to be in India for at least 182 days, and he is more than that. He is here in India for more than 182 days, so he is a resident. Then to be ordinarily resident, he should be in India for at least 730 days in 7 years prior to the previous year. He should be a resident for at least 2 out of 10 years prior to the previous year. So previous year is 2009. Previous year, if you take 10 years, he has been till 2015 for 15 years. He is here only. So surely 2 out of 10 years he will be a resident of India. So first additional condition is fulfilled. Then again 7 years prior to the previous year. So he should be there for at least 365 days. So when we go for 7 years before 2019-20, that is 18, 19, 17, 18, 16, 17, 15, 16, 14, 15 and so on, like that 7 years. So in those 7 years, he's been here for 15 years over here before 2015. So when we count, it is more than 730 days his stay in India in 7 years prior to the previous year. So he fulfills the second additional condition also. So that's why he becomes a resident and ordinarily resident. Next situation, Mr. Abbas left India for the first time on 15 December 2019. Only now he is leaving India. Before that he has been here only. And he comes back on 2nd February. So during the previous year, he is in India from 1st April to 15 December 2019. April 30 days, May 31, June 30, July 31, August 31, September 30, October 31, November 30 and December till 15. So 15 days. So this is his stay in India till December. Again, February 2nd he is back in India. So in February, from 2nd if you count, only 1st he is not there. So 29 days in February, he is there for 28 days. And March fully he is here. So 31 days in March. So his stay in India during the previous year is 318 days. So he becomes a resident because he is staying for more than 182 days in the previous year. And in 10 years prior to the previous year, he should be a resident for at least 2 years. First time he is going only in December 2019. So till that he is here. So as far as 2 out of 10 years, he will surely fulfill. And also in 7 years prior to the previous year, 730 days, he has been here only till 2019. So 730 days will surely be there. So he fulfills the second additional condition also. So he is a resident and ordinarily resident. Next, there's a situation where Mr. Ravi left for Iran on 18th April 2019 and he did not come to India till the end of the financial year 1920. So only in April till 18th he is there. So he is there in India only for 18 days. 1/4/2019 to 18/4/2019. Only 18 days he is there. So he is not able to fulfill the first basic condition of 182 days. Second basic condition 60 days. Even that he is not able to fulfill. So he is a non-resident. The next situation. Mr. X is a resident citizen who lives in India since 1979. He is in India. He went to Arabia for 325 days. That's all. So he has been in India throughout. In between, in 2019-20, he went to Arabia for 325 days. So during our previous year, we have to think about the previous year. 325 days he is in Arabia. So the remaining 6 out of 365 days, 325 days he is outside India. So only 40 days he is in India. So since he does not fulfill the first basic condition of 182 days, and since he does not fulfill the second basic condition of 60 days in the previous year and 365 days in 4 years prior to the previous year, he becomes a non-resident. So now the next situation. Mr. Prem left India for the first time on 17 December 2019 and comes back on 5th February. A similar situation we just saw. So till 17 December he is in India. So April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December, 17 days. And in February, 4 days he is not there, so 25, and March. So 317 days he is in India. He fulfills the first basic condition of 182 days, so he becomes a resident. And 2 out of 10 years prior to the previous year, first time he is leaving, so he has always been in India. So 2 out of 10 years prior to the previous year, he is a resident. And 730 days and 7 years prior to the previous year, he would have stayed in India because he is totally in India. By fulfilling both the additional conditions, he becomes a resident and ordinarily resident. Then the next situation, Mr. X, an Indian citizen, left India for the first time on 1/4/2018 for employment. He comes to India on 15/12/2019 and is here till 31/3. So from 15/12/2019 to 31st March, he is in India. So in December, he is there for 17 days, January 31 days, February 29 days, and March 31 days. So he is there for 108 days during the previous year. But he is an Indian citizen who comes to India for the purpose of employment. So our first basic condition, 182 days, is not fulfilled, but our second condition also is not 60 for him because he is coming on employment. It should be 182 days in the previous year and 365 days in 4 years prior to the previous year. So since he is coming, he is an Indian citizen who went on employment and he is coming to India, he should stay in India during the previous year for 182 days. Since he does not fulfill both the basic conditions, he is a non-resident. The next situation, Mr. Ramesh, an American national, comes to India for the first time in the last 20 years on July 20, 2019. On January 29, 2020, he leaves India for Africa. So now, going on to his stay in India from July till January, he is in India. So, July 12 days, August 31, September 30, October 31, November 30, December 31, January till 29, so 29 days. He is in India for 194 days during the previous year. Our condition is he should be in India for at least 182 days. Since he satisfies the first basic condition, he is a resident and he is an American national who comes to India for the first time. So he has never been in India for the past 20 years. So 2 out of 10 years prior to the previous year, he will not be a resident because he has never been in India. And also 730 days and 7 years prior to the previous year, he cannot fulfill. So by not fulfilling the additional conditions, he becomes not ordinarily resident. He fulfills the basic condition, he is a resident. By not fulfilling the additional conditions, he is a not ordinarily resident. The next situation, Mr. John, a German national, comes to India for the first time in the last 20 years on July 20 and January 20. He leaves, similar to the sum that we just saw. So July is there for 12 days, August 31, September 30, October 31, November 30, December 31. Totally he is there for 165 days. And on 20th January he leaves. So in January he is there for 20 days. So 165 plus 20, it becomes 185 days in India. He satisfies the first basic condition, being stay in India for at least 182 days in the previous year. So he is a resident, but he is a German national who comes for the first time in the last 20 years. So 20 years he is never in India, so he cannot fulfill both the additional conditions. So he becomes a not ordinarily resident. So he is a resident by fulfilling the basic condition, and he is a not ordinarily resident by not fulfilling the additional conditions. So moving on to the next situation. Mr. Rao came to India from USA for the first time on 30th September 2007 to join an American concern as general manager. And he is here, he reported for duty. He left for Japan in October 2008 and then he returned back on 10th October 2008. He stayed here till 31st July 2018 and went back to USA. He came back on 10th November 2019. So 2019 November onwards he is here. So during our previous year is from April to March, and in that, in November 10th only he comes here, so 22 days he is here. December 31 days, January 31, February 29 and March 31. So he is there for 144 days. He does not fulfill the first basic condition of 182 days, but we have a second basic condition which says 60 days in the previous year. 144 is more than 60. So stay in India for at least 60 days in the previous year is satisfied. Along with that, he should be in India for at least 365 days in 4 years prior to the previous year. So previous year is 1920. That is more than 60. Leaving out the previous year in 2018, 19, 17, 18, 16, 17, 15, 16. These are the 4 years prior to the previous year. In this, he should be there for at least 365 days. So he came in 2008 till 2018. He is here only in India. So while counting the number of days of stay in India, he is there for 365, 365, 366 and so on. So his stay in India is more than 365 days in 4 years prior to the previous year. So he becomes a resident by fulfilling the second basic condition. Then going on to the additional conditions, he should have been a resident for at least 2 out of 10 years. So when it comes to 2 out of 10 years, 4 years are here itself. Another 6 more years you can write. And in this 4 years itself, you can easily say he is a resident for at least 2 years. So the condition 2 out of 10 is fulfilled. 730 days. So here itself 730 is there. Actually we should go for 7 years, totally 7 years. In 4 itself he is having 730 days. So by fulfilling the second additional condition also, he fulfills both the additional conditions. So he becomes a resident and ordinarily resident. Then there is a similar situation where a person visits Canada on 10th October 2005, returns after 2 years of stay there. On 10th October 2009, he goes to Italy, comes back in May 2019, and he makes another attempt and he leaves on 10th February 20. So May 19th to 10th February 20, he is in India. So his stay in India is for 286 days in the previous year. Our condition is he should be in India for at least 182 days. So he fulfills the first basic condition. One condition is enough for us in the basic condition. Going to the additional conditions, 2 after 10 years he's been in India, yes, and see, he is there in Canada for 2 years. He is an Indian citizen. 2 years he's been in Canada. Otherwise he is in India. And then 2009 to 19 he is not here. But you're supposed to have 10 years. So in 10 years, 2 out of 10 years, he is a resident in India. And in 7 years prior to the previous year, he should have been in India. So he is been there for 730 days in 7 years prior to the previous year. So he is a resident and ordinarily resident. Again, Mr. Prabhu went to Germany for a diploma course on 5th August 2019 and comes back on 25th February. His family is in India, but he is not in India. His presence is essential. So his stay in India during our previous year is April 1 to March 31. So in that till August he is in India. So 1st April to 5th August. Again 25th February to 31st March. So count the number of days. It is 163 days. First basic condition is not satisfied. Second basic condition, 60 days in the previous year and 365 days in 4 years prior to the previous year is fulfilled. Then moving on to the additional conditions, he should be a resident for at least 2 out of 10 years prior to the previous year. So he is a resident for at least 2 out of 10 years and he stayed in India for at least 730 days in 7 years prior to the previous year. So he is a resident and ordinarily resident. So this is one more situation for your practice. So in the previous year 2019-20, he left India for the first time on 15/9/2016 and he comes back on 1/9/2018. So you are supposed to find out his residential status for the previous year 19-20. He again left on 15/6/2019 and came back on February 14, 2020 and he is here in India after that. So his stay in India during the previous year is 123 days, which is more than 60 days, and we go for 4 years prior to the previous year. We count the days he is in India. So in 4 years prior to the previous year, he is there for more than 365 days. And 2 out of 10 years he should be a resident. Yes, we can easily say he is a resident in 2 out of 10 years. And 730 days in 7 years prior to the previous year also is fulfilled in the same 4 years itself. So another 3 more years we can take and add and check for ourselves. So he is a resident and ordinarily resident. So as such, when you go into a residential status of an individual, this is how you consider one basic condition and 2 additional conditions. So here there's a situation where Mr. X, a foreign national, came to India for the first time on June 15, 2014. He stays in India during the financial year 15, 16, 16, 17, all these years he is in India for 115 days, 15 days, 191 days, 124 days and 80 days respectively. So this is how he is in India. So during the previous year he is there for 80 days and he does not satisfy the first basic condition. Second condition of 60 days, yes. And in 4 years prior to the previous year he should be there for at least 365 days and that he is there. And also going further, he should fulfill at least one basic condition. So he is a resident for the previous year. Here's a foreign national, so you can check it for yourself. This is a problem which you can use for your practice. First time in the last 20 years, he leaves on November 25th, 2017 and so on. So determine his residential status for the previous year, and by working it out, our solution says he is a resident and ordinarily resident. That means to say he's fulfilled one basic condition and he should have fulfilled both the additional conditions. Only then he can become a resident and ordinarily resident. One more problem for your practice, so you can just check it out for yourselves and go ahead with solving it. So this situation also, he is a resident and ordinarily resident. So thank you for your patient listening and have a happy and smart learning. So this is for residential status of an individual. Thank you.